What's your real name?
Claire.
Claire? And where do you live?
3061 Gertz Road, Jamestown, up by the airport.
Okay. And how old are you?
76.
76. You don't look it, does he?
No.
Jinx is right.
Yeah.
Jinx, eh?
That's my nickname. It's really Mary Ann. But it's...
Terrific. Now, where did you grow up?
Patton, Pennsylvania.
Patton, Pennsylvania. Isn't that? I think that's the location of a guy named Russ Dietrich.
It is.
Yeah. Did you know the family? Did that?
My grandmother lived about 2 blocks below his grandmother on the same street, and my grandmother's uncle had a farm behind his grandmother's house, and I used to go up there and I'd take a shortcut through his grandmother's yard to get to my grandmother's uncle's farm, because I hung around there. They had a team of horses, and I used to go over there quite a bit. But my grandmother's uncle Alec, he was bad news. Anyway, they had a dog named Shep, and one day I went over there for breakfast and I asked him what happened to Shep, and they had given me eggs and sausage, and he says we made sausage out of them. I never went back. Oh, he was bad.
Well, who would have guessed I'd be sitting here in Harmony Historical Society talking about Patton, Pennsylvania, and Russ Dietrich. Honest to gosh, small world. What we are going to want to talk about is the Roll O Bowl. And for the camera, we're doing this for the camera. Where is it located?
Button Valley Road.
And what's its history? How did it get started?
Don and Howard McNett started that in 1956.
And did they own the property?
They either owned it or their grandmother lived in that house there. I'm not sure of that.
Okay. And were they in the race business before?
Not to my knowledge. They decided to make that track for the guys who have cheap racing, the way I understand it.
Is that right? Yep.
You could get into it without too much money.
And that's, by definition, those would be the stock cars? Is that what that...
Yeah.
Because I know I've seen the reference to stock cars, and then there's modified cars. For the camera, what's the difference?
Modified cars, you could use just about anything you wanted to them. You could soup them up.
And the stock cars were basically off the road?
Yeah.
Type stuff?
They brought them, probably drug them out from behind the barn and put roll bars in them and a seat belt, and away they went.
And so the idea behind the McNitt's track at Roll O Bowl was to let those people who had stock cars, who probably couldn't afford modified cars, to race there?
I believe that's the truth, yes.
Now, did you race there at the beginning in '56? Were you part of that?
No. Dick Pangborn and I were racing at Jamestown Speedway at that time. And in August of '56, Pete Muyo was a promoter out there, and I guess he leased a track. And the last race out there in '56, we won a 50-lapper.
And this is where? Where did you win that?
Jamestown Speedway, which was Mike's. Mike Palermo started that track in 1935.
Where was that?
Out on 380.
Okay.
If you go out 380 and where the basement lounge is, well, it's not open anymore,
right.
But that's built on the foundation of Mike's restaurant.
I'll be darned.
And there was a road that went back in there. I was back in there, I'd say 5 years ago. A fellow fireman, I found out that his wife's grandmother owned that property. Mm-hmm. So I asked him if he'd take me down there. One night we were at the fire hall, and he said, sure. So I ran home and got a camcorder, and we took off, went down there walking around. And the north end of the track is still there. The south end was, I believe Beavers got in there and put a pond in. And the back stretch, part of that was there in the front stretch. The bleachers are there, but they're all rotted down, laying on the ground.
I'll be darned.
There's trees through the bleachers that are 1.5 feet thick.
So this was the Jamestown Raceway. So that's what you were doing in 1956 or so, you and Dick Pangborn. Yep. And were you even aware of the racing going on at Roll O Bowl?
Yeah, we went up there and watched it. That's when they had the creek in there. Right. There was a stream that ran down through the middle of the track.
Tell me about it. Tell me the layout of the track. If you closed your eyes and sort of described the track, How could you? How would you?
Well, the track set in a gully.
Right.
Now, the front stretch was lower than the back stretch.
Mm-hmm.
It was, they had a stand there built on railroad ties, I believe, where the announcer was and the lady that kept track of the laps. The front stretch was pretty wide. And when you went up the front stretch, you went up a little hill. The back stretch was higher.
Okay.
And then when you come down, off the third turn, it was downhill.
Okay.
And if you missed the third turn, you dove into the ditch. The only mishap I can remember happened, really, where a guy got hurt, is a guy missed a turn, he went in there and nose dived in, he broke his nose.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can remember that happened up there, you know, as far as accidents.
So the creek was on, kind of ran right through it?
Right through it.
So you literally, as you did a circle, a lap, you'd go through the creek at least twice.
Yeah, so we saw that, and the cars would dive in there and start up that grade, and there'd be boulders and rocks and water coming out from underneath them, and we said, no way are we coming here.
So this was 1956 is when it got started by the McNitts, and you observed it, obviously, and decided you weren't going to have anything to do with it.
Then they put plank bridges in and covered with dirt. Then we started going there.
Okay. When did you first race there at the Roll O Bowl?
57.
57? What was it?
Not me, Dick.
Dick did.
I think I didn't do anything until 58.
Okay.
I had a friend that was racing at Rock and Roll in Frewsburg, and he wanted to quit, so I bought his car.
Now, what was the draw? When would they race? When was a normal race?
Sunday.
Sunday?
Sunday afternoon.
I drove out there yesterday, and I noticed the Button Valley Road, and there's not much room for cars or anything else. Where would the spectators, I've seen the articles which talk about 800 spectators.
Well, I didn't have nothing to do with that. I don't remember 800 being there, but we used to get a pretty good crowd there. And there was no bleachers.
Yeah.
The way the bank came behind the stand that they had for announcing and everything, it sloped down, and the first row of cars would park there, and the second row there, and the third row. And most of them people sat in their cars.
No kidding. Was it pretty dusty?
Yeah, it really wasn't bad, because they had a water tank there. They used an old tractor to put water on it. They had dug a deeper hole in the middle of the track where the creek ran through, and they had a pump there, and that's where they got their water, and the guys that needed water for their cars, that's where they got their water.
The McNitts themselves, who were the owner-operators, what was their reputation, or what did they do for a living if they weren't racers? Were they just farming or farmers? Or?
I don't know what they did, really. I worked with their father at Chautauqua Hardware in 1959 and 60, Howard Sr.
Right.
But as far as Don, I don't know what he did, and I don't know what Howard did. The Red, I understand, that was a brother, but he raced.
Right.
I think he was a truck driver for somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In those years, it seemed to be pretty popular. Were there, aside from Roll O Bowl in 1956, 57, what were the other tracks that were active, and when did they run? You mentioned
Rock and Roll in Frewsburg, probably late 57, 58. By 1960, they were all gone.
Okay. Yeah. And would they, on other nights, like Rock and Roll Frewsburg, would that be a Friday night?
No, that was Sunday afternoon, too.
So there was competition.
Sherman, I think they started on Saturday, and then they switched to Thursday nights. We used to go up there once in a while.
Right.
That was a gravel pit.
Mm-hmm.
You ran there, it was like being shot at with a shotgun.
I noticed in the early years, they to try to draw fans, they did some fun things, like the powder puff races there. Was that fairly novel at the time to have women out racing?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think Jamestown Speedway had a powder puff at one time. Roll O Bowl used to have them.
Right.
Clarine James and Beulah Eggleston, they were usually the ones that won.
Mm-hmm.
Now the James brothers, there were 6 of them. They'd have their own match race once in a while.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about that. How would that be set up, and how long would a match race?
Oh, probably 8, 10 laps.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they set them up, but there was Louis and Walt and Alvin, Don, Roy, I can't remember the other one. Clyde. Yep.
And so they had brother match races. I know I've also seen references to the brothers McNitt would actually go out and race each other, kind of one-on-one brother thing. I assume just to keep crowd interest.
Oh yeah, they advertised a horse pull there one time. They had a bicycle race, and then I think this lady told me that you rode around in Red McNick's stock car.
That's right.
I was there that weekend,
Really?
where the kids got in the cars and rode around the track.
Kiddie car. I just read that today. I was there. The other thing I remember, a couple things I remember. One is Leo Yeager. He was not a small guy, was he?
Oh, he was a big guy.
And aside from being a race car driver, I understood that on occasion he would go through something called the Circus Wall of Flames.
Yep.
What was that?
Well, they made a bracket and they run boards across it and doused it with gasoline and set it off, and Leo laid on the hood and they drove through it.
How would he? I mean, he would literally with his back
No, head first.
head first.
You know, I don't know. A lot of guys in them days had football helmets.
Yeah, yeah.
We had a Cromwell, which is about that time the top of the line. When Dick won the 50 lappers at Jamestown Speedway, a guy come up to him and asked him if he wanted to buy a helmet. We didn't have a helmet. We'd go to the races and we'd borrow a helmet from guys. So Dick come to me and he says, guy wants to sell me a helmet for 25 bucks. What do you think? He says, it's a Cromwell. Well, I knew the name. So I said, well, we better buy it. And heck, we had that thing for many, many years, till finally the ear straps rotted off.
Well, tell me about a helmet. I mean, you visualize the helmet now. What this one look like? The 1950 Cromwell helmet.
It had a peak on it and leather, and buckled underneath the chin.
Yeah. I'm still intrigued by this whole Leo Yeager thing.
Yeah.
So what was he holding on to?
He's just laying on the hood.
Laying on the hood, just
Yeah.
300 pounds, head first. This guy, and then somebody's driving him through this wall of flames.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of wood they had there, but it wasn't hardwood.
Oh, I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure it wasn't.
One thing about Leo Yeager, we were up at Sherman. Well, Dick was driving, and I was in the pits. And Leo come up and he says, you want to drive my car in the future? And I says, he just built this car. It was a Chevy. And I told him, Leo, I don't think so. I said, what the heck if something would happen? He said, well, if it happens, it happens. So I said, okay. One lap. And come out of the fourth turn, broke an axle, and the backing plate went down in the gravel and rolled me up the bank, and that was the end of the car. First thing he did when he come out, he asked me, he said, you hurt? And I said, no. I said, yeah, but your car is. He said, I ain't worried about it. That's the way Leo was. He was easy going.
There's also, do you have a brother, Bud Yeager?
Yeah. Bud Yeager lives in this area up here somewhere.
Oh, he's still alive?
Oh, yeah. There's 3 guys that I can mention that live in this area that raced there. Fred Eggleston, Bud Van Tassel, and Bud Yeager.
There you go.
And there's a guy that lives in Sugar Grove, Ray Groves.
There you go. Okay.
That raced up here.
You're marking this all
And
stuff.
there may be more that are just, things don't come like you used to.
Well, you wait and see. Before the night's over, Randy's going to give you a list of names, and it'll flow.
Oh, yeah,
One of the things I remember is, aside from riding in Red McNitt's car, before I had a chance to ride it, he would drive around and put his car up on the bank and roll it over.
I was there then, too. He rolled that Studebaker, I don't know, 16, 18 times. Finally, when he got done rolling it over, the roof was flat. He'd come down off the banking in the third turn, he'd go up the bank by the fourth turn, and then it would just naturally roll.
Yeah.
And come on us wheels.
Yep. You and I were there. Well, we probably had hot dogs together. I don't know. In 1956 and 57, it seemed to be sort of the highlight where there was a lot of fans and a lot of cars. I think at some point we actually saw numbers like 800 people seeing it with up to 60 cars.
Oh, I seen one weekend at the Roll O Bowl where the back touched the front. They raced everybody was there. You could start the feature.
In the whole place?
The whole place, it was full of cars.
You gotta be kidding.
That was only once that I seen that.
What was a normal feature? How many laps?
25.
25?
Sometimes they'd have a 35 for a trophy race, a 50.
50 laps.
You know, there was a lot of guys that raced at Roll O Bowl that ended up running late models at State Line.
And the reason was that this is sort of a proving ground for some of the younger drivers. I know I saw Skip Furloughs and Ronnie Blackmer and some of those names. Is that where they kind of got their start? Or just there was...
Well, I believe Skip did, because I remember Skip when we first started going up there. I thought he was 15. He come up and he says, "Hey, you got a driver for your car?" And I said, "Yeah, I got my partner drives." But he was looking for a ride in them days. I think he was 15.
So at some point, the 56, 57, 58, the McNitts were running the show. And then at some point, they come and talk to Dick Pangborn and Blinky Litzinger.
There was somebody else in there.
Was there?
I think it was Millard Bacon in probably 59.
Okay. Was that because the McNitts weren't going to do it or just got tired?
Weren't going to do it for some reason.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about it. Dick came to me one day and he says, "Hey, we're going to lease that track this summer." I said, "No, we don't know nothing about that." So,
What year would that have been that you'd leased the track? Was that
1960.
1960? We actually got some headlines from that thanks to Pam Brown. She did some research. How did you find, this is 60, it's, you know, some of the racetracks are struggling. How did you find Roll O Bowl in that year?
We weren't getting many people.
Didn't?
No, we leased that for, I believe the insurance was $65 on Sunday, and we leased the equipment for $35. That included the tractor, the grader, the water tank, the water pump, the PA system, and the electricity.
And you leased it from the McNitts or the family?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you have to do a lot of promoting, or did it just word of mouth?
We didn't even know what promoting was. We'd go up there Saturday and we'd spend most of the day up there. We'd grade the track.
Right.
The concession stand we had was a Wholesome bakery truck that...
I remember that.
You remember that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, that was 1960.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we cut the side and put hinges on it so you could flip it up. And the women sold hot dogs that they cooked on an electric skillet.
Yeah,
I probably bought them from you, huh?
probably did.
Yeah. I'll be darned.
Yeah.
So this was, how long during the season, what kind of a season did you have? It sounded like it was a short season.
If I remember right, we all got $10 apiece, and that money came out of the profits of the hot dog stand. We told the guys when they come up there, we pay the insurance and we pay the rent of the track, and everything else we'll pay the drivers. We'll divide it up so it's all paid out. And that's what we did all the time we were there.
So the idea was whoever paid either from the concession stand or admissions, that was your pot, right?
Well, we didn't do the concession stand was different.
Okay.
It was $2 to get in for a driver, and I think the wife was $2, and the kids got in for nothing. And if you didn't make any money, you got your tow money back, $2.
Yeah. How many, would you get a lot of drivers at the time, or do you remember, or was it?
No, we were probably getting 15 or 20 at that time.
Right. What was a normal race card? Was it, how many races?
Oh, three heats, a consi, a semi, and a feature.
Did you lose anybody in the creek during that time period?
Only Red Walters and went off and broke his nose.
During that time period, do you remember some of the colorful racers? Some of the names of the individuals that...
Had nicknames, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, Johnny Whitehead, we called him the Flying Farmer.
Okay. I see reference to a guy named Stan Stevens.
Oh, yeah. Now, Stan was a past point champion in the sportsman division at State Line, and he ran late models. Ray Roseland ran late model for one or 2 years in the early 60s. Johnny Whitehead, Blackmere, Marty Rader ran at the Roll O Bowl.
Now, I also heard the story about Skip Furlow. I think this is a Roll O Bowl track story where the water tank or something fell out of. What was that story?
Well, I guess he was fooling around when the McNitts had it, and the water tank rolled off the two-wheel cart that they had there and broke his leg. He was laid up for quite a while.
Also, Jim Scott. Wasn't Jim Scott?
Jim Scott ran there too, yeah.
Yeah. He had some success, didn't he, at State Line?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a boy that runs.
Oh, is that right?
Well, I don't know if he's still running. Chevy Scott?
David. Chevy and David.
I see Jim every
Actually,
once in a
now,
while.
Blinky, Jim's grandson is racing up at State Line.
Man, I tell you how old we are, huh?
I also saw a headline here that says, Litzinger breaks drought for Jamestown drivers. September 2nd, 1958. Blinky Litzinger yesterday became the first Jamestown driver to win a feature event at the Roll O Bowl here since Dick Pangborn turned the trick in a 35-lapper on June 22nd, 1958. Was that your first win at Roll O Bowl?
First feature. That's the only feature.
Now, did you race there in 1960 also when you were...
No, I was the flagman and Dick was the announcer.
Okay. How many years did you race at Roll O Bowl?
58 and 59.
50 and 59?
I ran a mechanics race there in 57. They had a mechanics race.
Right. A mechanic. I'm just trying to think of a mechanics race. There wasn't much of a pit crew here for these jalopies.
Well, you didn't need many. But I'll say one thing about the people in those days. If you had a part and there was a guy there that needed a part, they would give it to you.
Right, right.
If they went through a radiator and you had an extra radiator, because you carried a lot of extra parts with you, even in them days.
Right.
They would give you a radiator. And after the race, they'd give it back to you.
Right. If you had to answer the question, the funniest thing I remember happening at the Roll O Bowl, what would you say?
I'd say the funniest thing is when the James boys chased the Johnny Messenger up through the pits.
Tell me more.
Johnny Messenger had a 36 Buick sedan, and he couldn't handle that thing at all, and I guess he got tangled up with a couple of the James boys on the track, and after the race, he drove that thing up through the pits and got out and kept on going. And there's the James boys after him. I'll have to say that's the funniest. But after it was all over, why? It was all forgotten.
Yeah, that's funny. Now, Jinx, you probably have a story that I should be asking him right now that you know about. You're saying, Greg, if you only knew.
Oh, I don't know. They like doing it. I know the track was either too wet or not. You know, it was too dry, too wet. They'd either water it or it was never. It was a lot of work.
Well,
Those two guys did it.
we went to the Roll O Bowl every Sunday that it wasn't raining.
Yeah.
And the wives and kids, they went along.
Right.
And we used to go to Cool Road in Erie, in Wesleyville. And the wife and kids, they went along too.
Yeah. So it was a family event.
Yep.
Get awful dirty, but they had fun. We'd sit on a bench they'd sit near the hot dog stand, so we'd watch them, But
Yeah.
Ann and I were both pregnant at the time. She was pregnant with twins, and I was pregnant with our third one. And towards the end, she kind of had trouble getting through the doors coming out.
Yeah, really wholesome.
Yeah,
Uh,
but we enjoyed it.
But after 1960, I think there was actually a headline, again, Pam came up, where it was decided that you decided to close the track. Then that was the end of the track, really, wasn't it?
Well, there was somebody, I read an article, there was somebody a year or two after that they talked about reopening, but they never did.
Okay.
I can't tell you who that was.
Yeah, nothing ever come of it.
So really, the Roll O Bowl track that I remember as a kid really had a 5-year history.
Yep, and they lasted longer than the other ones.
Was that right?
The Roll O Bowl was the most successful of Fruisburg, Sherman, Coon Road.
And I understand you have some movies someplace.
I have a movie of the Roll O Bowl that I got from Red McNitt, an old 8mm that was put on tape.
Well, I'll be.
And I know a guy that's got a tape of Roll O Bowl, and I've been trying to get him to give it to me, and it ain't working out.
Well, we'll get our people on it.
Well, he's pretty old, he's like me, and he ain't in too good a health.
All the more reason.
Yeah, every time I see him, I ask him.
Well, see, that would be fun to add, and just to see that. Now,
I gave a copy of that tape to Donna Johnson up here at one of the festivals here.
Okay.
I think I gave it to her last year.
Okay. We'll track it down because we'd love to match that all up and bring back some real memories.
I believe that tape was taken in '57
Was it?
because the bridges were in then.
Right. So the first year there were no bridges, so they really would hard scrabble. I mean, they were just. I'm visualizing this track. My gosh,
This was an obstacle course.
Yeah.
Oh, it was rough. We broke water pumps. We couldn't keep water pumps. It was so rough. Till finally, we put a bracket onto the head and welded brackets onto the frame and used turnbuckles, 2 on each side, to hold the motor down so we wouldn't break water pumps.
Well, here's one of the headlines of 1956. Jalopy stars roll and bounce before 250 craft. It said that the co-owners, Howard and Donald McNitt, slightly disappointed by the turnout, are convinced to attack the problem of too much dirt and rough creek bed. They said the creek bed cutting through both ends of the Button Valley Road operation needed to be fixed. But I guess they fixed it by really just having that.
We put a plank bridge in each end and covered it with dirt.
Okay, so they had the sluice kind of going underneath the bridge.
Yep. Yeah, the water still flowed.
I think that's a hoot. And again, I was over there yesterday, but it seems to me that as you come off the road, that would be the front, the track. Then it went down, and then it went up a hill, right? Did it kind of go up a hill? And this would be after the, let's see.
After the front stretch, you went up.
Yep.
The back stretch, then you come down.
Yeah. You can still see it. It's overgrown, but you can, when you walk down it, you can actually see that track.
Yeah, I was in there, I don't know, her and I stopped there, and the man that lives there, he was cutting the grass, and I asked him, I said, you know there used to be a racetrack here? And he says, well, I work with a guy that told me that. And I talked to him about it, I said, would you mind if I walk down in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what we're going to do sometime, Pam's going to orchestrate this. We're going to get a bunch of your old driver friends, and we'll go up there, because the current owners of the property, nice people, I talked to them yesterday, and they're very excited about what we're doing. And if we could actually put together, you and Ray and Eggleston and those guys, just kind of walk up there, I think you'd have a hoot. Then the stories would flow.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. What am I missing? What haven't I asked you about that you're dying to tell me? Because then I'm going to ask Randy to fill in the blanks here.
Well, I believe it was Fred Eggleston that had a hay rake wheel for a roll bar. You know, a hay rake wheel is big,
Yeah.
and he used a torch and cut out the bottom so it would fit in there. And old Bill Ireland, he had 2x6s for a roll bar.
Honest to gosh.
Helmets, most of the guys had football helmets. Most didn't have racing helmets. We were one of the few. Of course, Whitehead had, when he came, those guys did. I believe Ray Rose did.
Mm-hmm. So this was really, does the term jalopy, I see that used a lot here. Is that what that really means? Just sort of a stock car that's
Yeah. Yep.
jerry-rigged?
Well, you put roll bars in it and put a cow catcher on the front.
What else were you required to do? Everybody did you have to have seat belts?
Well, seat belts, we used to go to, most of the guys used to go to the Army-Navy store that was on 3rd Street between Washington and Lafayette.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, there was a bar on the corner, and then there was Viking Foods, and there was a Chinese restaurant, and then there was the Army-Navy surplus store. We'd go down there and we'd buy the belt off a parachute for $3. I got one in the car I got at home. And that old jalopy. Bobby Turner had that hanging on the wall down when he was on 1st Street, he told me, for years. And Albert Byrath, who I see Albert, oh heck, once or twice a week, he lives down over the hill from me. He raced at those places. He cleaned out his garage and he had one. He gave it to me. So I got it hanging in my garage.
Well, I'm glad you're the repository of all this good stuff. I also saw where occasionally some drivers would get disqualified. There's an article here that said that nearly 450 fans looked on in wonderment as a guy from Columbus, Pennsylvania was given the boot after winning the 15-lap headliner because it contained a 4-barrel carburetor and an oversized radiator. Was there, so even back then they were checking?
Yeah, they put together there was Dick Pangborn and 2 other guys that they called it a safety committee, and I believe they had something to do with that. But oversized radiators, I think we ran a Mercury radiator. They were oversized. But the 4-barrel carburetors, I don't know what he had that on.
Yep. And I also saw a couple of other times where they chased drivers who they were riding dirty. They had,
Oh,
I don't remember them ever kicking anybody out.
well, here's one that said, newcomer Stan Walters of Randolph rumbled to a comfortable margin feature victory yesterday as the Jalopy Track Roll O Bowl continued to crack down on irregularities among its stock car drivers. 2 disqualifications, one alleged dirty driving, and the other for disregard of safety rules, enlivened just the safety rules. So they had a safety committee that sort of checked, you know.
Yeah, if somebody squawked, why they'd go take a look. So I believe they had his picture. Him and the other 2 guys. They had his picture in the paper. Now this lady here. Did you know? Oh my God! Now, she just died here. She was up in Panama. Carl Halpenny. The first reunion we had at the Llama Club down here. And somebody brought pictures of the Roll O Bowl. I thought it was Louis James. But I asked Louis about that, and he said, no, I didn't bring any. And I think it was Carl Halpenny, because it had good pictures of the track, the back stretch, the front stretch. Now, whether his widow has them or not, I don't know.
Yeah, they're looking for them for me, because I've talked to them. They even have a movie, they said, but we have to...
Well, I didn't know anything about that, but I just surmised that maybe it was Carl Halpenny that had them.
When 1960 rolled around and you were saying that the small tracks just were sort of in the demise mode, why was that? Was it just the interest was not there anymore, or State Line?
I believe State Line.
State Line.
Because State Line started running 100-lap jalopy races.
Ah. So that they drew in.
Yeah, but they'd only run maybe one a year. Maybe one year they ran 2. I can remember being in 3 of them.
Were you? And the geography of drivers, where did they come from at Roll O Bowl? How far out? Was it just?
I would say maybe as far away as Randolph, but they were mostly local guys.
Right.
There was Jamestown drivers.
Okay.
Holly Paulson from Jamestown, Albert Byrath from Jamestown. The guys that I know, I run into them once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I took that old jalopy, I got down to the war vets, their car show a couple of times, and people come up to me and, oh, I used to go to the Roll O Bowl, and I raced at the Roll O Bowl. And I said, if you tell me your name, I might know you.
Oh, this
Kids
is.
got a big kick out of it. They've never seen anything like it in their lives. An old car.
Yeah.
You still have it?
Yeah.
Well, the way that came about, after I retired, and I went and got all these articles, I went to the library, and I thought one day, I got all these old flathead parts around here. If I can find a body, I'm going to build a car like we used to. So I started looking for a body. I went to junkyards, and these things are a thing of the past. So finally, I stopped down at Kimball's stand. Kurt Reisner, he monkeys around old car parts and cars. He says, I got one out there, why don't you go out and take a look at it? So I went out and looked at it, and just what I want. It was a 47 Ford two-door. I asked him what he wanted for it, and he told me. I said, okay. I said, but you got to deliver it. He said, okay. So, yep. He went and got his trailer, we put it on, and up to the house we went. That summer I messed around that thing. I took a junk motor and junk parts and put it together, and nobody was more surprised than me when it ran. But then Franny Siemens, he heard I had it. Now, Franny Siemens' dad raced at the Roll O Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And Franny told me he remembered us guys when he was 12 years old at that time. And he said, how'd you like to run that a couple laps down state line? And I said, yeah, why not? So he said, oh, I got to come up and look at it. I said, oh, yeah, come on up. So he come up, looked it over, and he says, how are you going to get there? I said, I ain't going to get it there. If you want it there, you're going to take it. So he sent a trailer up there, one of the guys that works, and they took it down there on a Saturday afternoon. And we went up there. He told me, I'm going to let you run 2 laps. Well, I get ready to go on the track, and the guy says, 4 laps. I said, well, Franny told me 2. He says, nope, 4. So they give me the green, and they give me the white, and they give me the checkered, and then they let me go around with a flag and took.
He wanted to keep up right on it going. He was having fun.
Oh, absolutely. That's great.
But after I made the first lap, I thought, gee whiz, you know, this whole thing, I don't know if it's going to stay together. I said, well, the hell with it. If it don't stay together, let her blow. So I put her to the floor, let her go.
I gotta love it. You gotta love it. That's
But
true.
it stayed together.
And so you still have this?
Yeah, I got it up the house.
No? Good.
Had a guy call me today and wants to come take a picture of it.
There you go. See, you're a legend. I told you were a legend.
No. And let's see, last week I had a guy from Florida call me that he's doing a book on dirt racetracks in western New York, central New York, western New York, and northwestern Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And he's going to call me back because some of the tracks he asked, I told him about, he didn't know anything about.
Well, tell me about those. In this area, what were some of the other tracks?
Well, besides Roll O Bowl and Rock and Roll, there was Sherman, there was Cool Road in Wesleyville, 3 Point down behind the Pines off of Route 6 by Wrightsville, Coon Road between Sherman and Westfield, Van Speedway and Arkwright.
Heard of that, huh?
It was out behind the town barns.
Mm-hmm. Where was Satan Bowls? Where that was? Where
It was on Big Tree Sugar Grove Road.
Yeah.
I was never there.
Okay.
Penny Royal, I was never there.
Okay.
I was telling Randy that every June or something, the car club wants somebody to put a tour together like. So I got a neighbor, Dick Sedlak, he got after me. He says, why don't you do it? And I thought, well, maybe it'd be just something we could put together to go to all these old racetracks.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Well, we did it.
Oh, we did it.
Yeah, but it rained all morning long. We started from the Quickfill in North Main. We went to Jamestown Speedway. Then we went to Leon. Then we went to Frewsburg. Went up past State Line, and we were supposed to be in Sherman at the hotel for a brunch. And it was running pretty late. So we didn't get up by where Satan's Bowl was, and we didn't get to down behind the pines. And we went up through, and the old gravel pit in Sherman is behind WC Trucking. That's where it used to be. It's leveled off now. Right. And we ended up at the Sherman Hotel. And then in the afternoon, the weather got pretty good, but it rained all morning.
Well, you know, if you got two real hot shots here, and these two, Randy, Sweeney, and Anderson, if they were any kind of guys, they would take a bus, and they would put you back on, and we would do it on during the day. Great video. Wouldn't that be cool?
Be like Kramer's reality tour. Be like Blinky's reality tour.
Yeah.
I'd do it.
Yeah. There you go.
We already did that in the car.
Yeah, but I mean, it's bus. Like a bus.
Frewsburg is...
Right? Community Foundation, it's got to be something.
I think the Jackson Center could be a major sponsor of that. Don't you, Randy?
It'd be a lot safer.
Frewsburg is all bulldozed over. Joe Anderson, that had Anderson's restaurant in Frewsburg, his son has that now. But he's got a son up, I believe, in the old homestead, and he had it bulldozed over. And this overlook up there, that was close by it. So we went to the overlook to use the restrooms.
Yeah. This is a hoot. Randy, do you have questions? Hey, first of all, sit over here, because for visual.
Blinky, I want to ask you what a typical race car was at the Roll O Bowl Speedway. Was there a particular model car that seemed to work better than others out there?
Well, we ran Ford, because Ford parts were easy to find. Junkyards were full of them. Now, some guys ran Chevrolets, and it was the same thing there. 30s, 40s Chevrolets were around, the motors were around, and that's why you did that, because the parts were readily available.
What kind of money do you think you had invested in a typical stock car of the late 50s?
I don't even want to tell you what I put in this one I built.
I don't mean today's money.
My wife
I mean
had raised
50s
Cain.
money, Blink. What do you think you had back in the day?
We paid $35 for it from this guy's
Great uncle.
great uncle. It's a Hudson Garage on 2nd Street. I believe it's where Fenton Mobility is now. He was the service manager there, and I believe he was a relation of Dick Pangborn's, somehow.
Yeah, I think he was married somehow into that family. His wife might have been a Pangborn.
No, his wife was a Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure, but I've heard the name.
So,
Well, his mother came from around Bustye.
Okay.
so you had like 35 bucks tied up in a race
$35
car?
in the car, and I don't know if you remember old Cleo Russ. He was Stan Stevens' father-in-law. He did the welding for us, and I don't remember, an old Vern Squires, he used to do some welding for us. He lived on Burtis Bay down there, right by the lake at that time.
So what kind of money were you racing for at the time? You had 35 in your car. What kind of purse money were you competing for?
The heats, the semis, and the consolations paid 10, 8, and 5. The feature at the Roll O Bowl paid 35, and after that, I don't know.
So you could literally win enough money in one day to pay for your race car?
Yeah, the one we paid for the race car, yeah. Well, Frewsburg paid $50 to win. And they paid 15 to win a heat. And I believe they paid that for the semis and the consies.
Blinky, nowadays guys can't make enough money to pay for their race car in a whole season.
I know it. These days will never come back. They're gone.
Did you have any speed secret that you always tried to put into your car when you were working on it? Was there anything that you always said, if I do this, I know it'll make my car better?
We always took our car home. Some guys left their car at the track all week. we took our car home, and we used to hang out at 7th and Main. Jimmy Parsoliti had a Sunoco station there.
Jimmy Polaro.
No, Jimmy
No?
Blair was across the street.
Oh,
There you go.
wrong side of 7th and Main.
We'd go there, and we'd grease our car. And we'd clean the plugs. And all we did was we just bought our gas from him. He'd let us grease our car. He had a Champion spark plug cleaner at that time.
Did you have to reinforce the wheels on your car, Blink, with an extra center section? Or
No. What we did is eventually we took 15-inch Mercury rims and popped the rivets out of the center and turned them around, and that moved the wheels out probably, I'd say, 8 to 10 inches overall.
did you lock your rear ends?
Yeah.
Oh, so you did weld the spider gears up?
Nope, we leaded them. We leaded them, so if they broke loose, the lead just mixed it with the grease. If you welded them and they broke loose, it tore up the spiders and the ring and the pinion and the whole business. So we leaded ours. Take the rear end out, and we put paper in the holes and melted lead and poured them in there.
That's the speed secret I've been looking for.
One other thing we did, Dick had a brother-in-law. He's still living. He's in a nursing home in Frewsburg. His name's Larry Nutt, and he messed with race cars. At the time, he was living in Randolph, and he was working for the Nash Garage. The Nash Garage used to be across the street where the Quickfill is. And he told us we were having heating problems. He says, take some copper tubing and flare it, squeeze the end. This is when we had the original motor in it where the water jackets come out of the middle of the heads. Where the 49s, the water jackets come out the front. And he says, and drill holes about where the back two cylinders are. And you snake them in there. And with the copper tubing being flared, the water pump will push water in there and you'll get more coolant until the back two cylinders. And we did that. But then after we couldn't find any of the other older motors, well, then we've got 49 Mercury motors.
So you didn't necessarily have to run the motor that came with the car. So if you had a 47 Ford, you didn't have to run
if it fit in
a
there.
Mercury, you could put in a Buick.
No, you couldn't put in a Buick. It had to be Ford. Ford, made by the Ford Motor Company.
Okay.
Or bolt right in there. Mercury's a bolt right in.
Okay.
And Mercury had a 4-inch stroke where a Ford only had 3 3/4.
How did you get your car to the racetrack? Greg Peterson did an interview with Lloyd Moore the other day, and Lloyd drove his race car to the racetrack.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know, did you do that, or did you flat tow it, or what'd you do?
Tow bar.
You had a tow bar.
Yep.
Behind, what were you pulling it with?
Well, when we went to Erie, I had a 50 Chevy. And I ruined that 50 Chevy toward that old stock car. Then I bought a Ford pickup truck, and I bought that from the guy in Frewsburg, or no, the guy in Sugar Grove. His kids they monkey with old cars.
Thompson.
Russ Thompson. He worked for the Pennsylvania Gas Company on Clinton Street, and I used to hang around across the street at Dick Johnson's garage. And one day I mentioned to Dick, I said, "Might you better get a pickup truck." And he says, the guy across the street's got a 51 Ford pickup. So I bought that from him. It had a Mercury motor in it. Russ Thompson.
How about tires?
Never bought a new tire, went to the junkyard. Never bought a new tire. Always junkyard tires.
What kind of tires? What was the brand name?
Oh, I don't remember the brand name.
Just everything here was
Fit'ems. They were Fit'ems.
Fiddle.
15-inch. We ran a 16-inch on the left front and a 15-inch on the right front. You wanted to tried to run a bigger tire on the right front. The back, he tried to match them up.
Bigger tire wedged the car then. The bigger tire in the right front.
Well, we thought it did, but we didn't go that fast, you know. It was up here.
When I was looking over the list of guys that raced at Roll O Bowl, I was amazed at how many local guys right from around that racetrack competed. I mean, guys from the Flats area.
Oh, yeah.
Let me
Those
throw
are
out some
good.
names. You tell me what you think about these guys. Raleigh Woods,
Oh, yeah. Raleigh rode a Chevrolet two-door sedan. And I believe his wife was a lap counter.
Bunk Ecker,
Monk, yeah, he gave us a heck of a run for a points championship in '57. He had a coupe.
Fred Eggleston.
Oh, Fred, typical farmer.
What's that mean?
Well, he was a farm guy. Fred's easy to get to talk to. Never bothered nobody.
Another guy from the Flats area, Spike Smith.
Spike, he's a guy, he lived across the track in that A-frame.
All right, okay.
He had a 35 or 36 Chevy coupe that sat at the racetrack all the time. From the pits was the old, I believe it was the orchard
All right.
of that old farm. And there was a grade that went, a bank that went down to the track. Well, he'd park it on that bank out to the side. And when he got in a race, he'd get in it, goes down the hill and start it up and run. That thing sat there from...
And it's all still there too. When you go there, you can actually see the bank go right into the track.
The pit entrance was above the house.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Who would you say were the real hot dog drivers of the Roll O Bowl years? If you had to name the three top guys, probably Pangborn was one of them.
I believe Dick won more features there than anybody. But Johnny Whitehead was tough. Ray Groves was tough. They had good running cars. Like, they never left their car there. They took them home, like we did.
How about a guy named Leo Himes or Don Little?
Don and Glenn Little came to our first one. I believe they lived down around Sugar Road somewhere, but I haven't seen them since. But I believe Don had the best car between the brothers.
How about Himes, Leo Himes from Frewsburg? It seemed
Leo,
like he won a bunch of races up there.
He won a few. He raced mostly at Frewsburg because he was from Frewsburg. Yeah, I think Leo, he'll be dead 2 years here pretty soon.
You were talking about the James gang earlier, the six James brothers. Who was the best of the bunch?
Well, to me, going by the articles, I'd say probably Walt was. Walt's the one that's dead. They got killed out on Foot Avenue.
In a car accident?
No, he had a crane out there. Crane went up against the high-tension wires.
No going.
Well, the rest of them, they're around. Louis and Roy, they come. Louis hasn't come in the last couple of years. Roy, he floats in and out there. That was his wife, Clarine James, that would run the powder bus.
And when you say out there, was those the reunions, Randy? Is that what those
Yeah,
are?
Blinky and his wife organize a reunion every year. It's near the end of September, I know that. They hold
Last Sunday in September.
Bus Time Men's Club, isn't it?
Yeah.
See a lot of great races.
Oh,
Here's some amazing stories.
Last year we had the most guys of all. We had
Is that right?
20.
Well, good for you for doing that.
Christopherson, he raced the state line in I don't know what class.
Jerry Christensen?
Yeah.
Ran Hooligan. Won the point
Well,
championship there.
he came, and this guy ran late models. I can't think of his name.
Snars?
No, Bob always comes.
Yeah,
No,
I've
this
seen
is
Bob
the
Schneider's out
first.
there before.
This is the first time this guy came, and I can't remember his name.
I've seen Dizzy Eads out at your
Oh yeah,
reunion.
Dizzy and Skip, they always come
Dizzy
together.
and Skip.
Yeah.
I've seen Blackmer out at your reunions.
Yeah, well, Freddie Clark comes,
Freddie Clark,
and
right?
Roger Sadowski.
What was Roger's involvement? Was he a
I
mechanic
don't
on
know.
somebody's
I don't
car?
know. I
'Cause I don't
thought-
believe he raced.
I think he might have tried it out at Frewsburg. That's the only thing I can figure. Tell you the truth, I never asked him. But Freddie was tough with a Chevy.
Freddie Clark.
Freddie Clark won a lot of races with a Chevy. His mechanic was Oh, my.
Hey, Blink, I got to ask you a question there. I see in one of the headlines, Don Vanderkoy wins Roll O Bowl racing feature. Now, was that a relation of yours?
My uncle.
Her uncle.
Yeah.
Don done most of his racing at Sherman.
Did he?
But he come down to Roll O Bowl once in a while.
Okay.
Then Johnny, he started showing up down the Roll O Bowl.
Johnny Whitehead.
Yeah,
Was he one of the better ones at the end of the?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Johnny. He had a good running car. Ford Coupe or Mercury Coupe, I can't remember which.
Leo Yeager. Let's go back to Leo Yeager. I don't know why, guy's 300 pounds. He just drives me, just a vision.
He was a biggie.
What did he do for a living? Tell me a little bit about Leo Yeager.
When I found out that Leo Yeager, what he did for a living, his relatives had the Melody Inn. And I went down there in a bowling banquet, and there's Leo. He was a cook.
Oh, was that right? Well, he looked like it.
And what he did before that, I don't know. You'd have to ask his brother Bud.
Yeah.
Or maybe Fred Eggleston.
Now, did Leo race a lot, or was he just a couple years that he?
No, I don't think he was there at the end.
Okay.
Maybe 56 and 57.
Well, I tell you, I'd give my right eye teeth to see that movie of him going through that.
Well, that ain't on the movie. Not the one I got, anyway.
We'll spread out the word. I bet it's out there.
You said that you felt that State Line Speedway led to the demise of many of the small tracks around here.
Yeah, I mean, the people.
What did State Line have that the small town tracks didn't have?
Well, they had lights, good lights. People in them days, maybe they had just so much money to spend on stuff like that, and they figured they'd go to State Line and get a better show.
Did State Line pay better money than
Oh,
the
yeah.
tracks? Is that what attracted the drivers there?
The first 100-lapper they advertised $750 purse. That's total. That's not to win. That's total. So probably the 100-lapper paid $100. The first one I was in, I finished 17th. The second one I was in, I finished 13th. The third one I was in, I thought I finished third, but they had me down for fifth. I got $65 for the feature. I didn't get nothing in the heats. But $65, that was more than a week's pay of what I was making working in the factory.
Sure. State Line, when did it start?
56.
56.
So it was even competition back then. It's always been Saturday nights.
Yes.
Yeah.
And who started it, Randy?
Lloyd Williams,
Okay.
Don Frank, Jerry Frank, Leonard Briggs, and Marv Thorpe.
Yep.
The original 5 guys.
Forgot about Marv.
Yeah.
He was only in it for 1 year, and then he decided he'd rather race cars
Yeah.
than to own the track, so he dropped out of the partnership, and then Briggs, the 2 Frankses, and Lloyd Williams continued on.
Well, the State Line had competition from Skyline for a while.
Where was that?
If you go out of Sugar Grove to the dump road and go left till you got to make a right, and there's, I believe, a house here, and maybe a barn or a house over here, and a little bit further ahead to the left over there, that was where the track was.
There's 2 ways you can get to Skyline. You can go out
Yeah.
through Sugar Grove until you get to that bar on the right side with TNTs.
Yeah.
You can hang a left on that road.
Well, no, this is before that. The dump road.
It's that road right there. Or you can go, if you turn left at the corners and go to Teal Hill,
Yeah.
and then go up Teal Hill.
Well-
It's right up on the corner of Teal Hill and,
I don't,
what was the other one called?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But this was principally designed for modified cars, right? I mean, late model.
Skyline was running jalopies and late models, and then they went to modifieds. They ran up into 57.
Yeah.
But I think Leonard Briggs had something to do with that track, too.
I think he did
Cliff
too.
Coons.
Cliff Coons owned it at the end.
It didn't last too long.
Oh,
54.
oh, yeah, probably, what, 4 or 5 years?
3.5. 54, 5, 6, and I know they ran in 57.
State Line pretty much ran Skyline out of
Yeah.
business.
So other than really State Line, all these smaller tracks, their lifespan was really 2-3 years. It probably wasn't too long, and sort of, I get this impression, sort of converted pasture land or open land.
Yeah,
They
I
graded
forgot
it.
one. There was one in Clymer. They called it Clymer Super Speedway.
Is that right?
Oh my. I was there once. Dick Pangborn's brother had a car there, brother-in-law. All it was a hayfield. Now, I can't remember exactly where it was, but I talked to Johnny Whitehead one day and I asked him. He said, I know where that track was. But heck, they ran the feature there and you couldn't see the cars. There was no bleachers, there was nothing. You just stood around.
Oh,
I
man.
was afraid of getting killed.
This is great. Thank you. This is terrific. Blinky, you've been terrific.
Just what I know. Or I hope it's all. I hope I hadn't told you too many lies.
Well, that's the beauty of oral history. We'll never know. So,
Okay. I enjoyed that.
But enjoying it, remember, right? And it's not competition now. It's
No.
just having fun.
Another thing, the day he knocked his teeth out, I won all 3 races.
Did you really? Then the following week I caught you cheating.
They said that was a defroster vent.
Yeah.
There's a piece of old tire. It looks like it's been burnt. Piece of chrome and part of an old sign.
hey, look at that. Look at that. Yeah, sure. What fun.
Isn't that something? Just a piece of an old sign, piece of chrome. They said that's a defroster vent.
This is a hoot. This is a hoot. Well, yeah.
Oh, here we go. What's this?
Oh, geez, look at that.
Any idea who that is?
Motel. Meeting.
You could see it. If you get up here a little bit farther, you could see right where you were talking about. And down in here there was a hole. There was a water hose down there.
Is that where they got the water to water the track from?
Well, most of these guys, of course, none of them have been here almost 50 years, you know.
48.
Yeah.
Did you come down? Is this?
Yeah, I went right down through there.
Okay, I seen Red Walders come down through.
Into the pit, remember?
I seen Red Walders come down through here and he come right to a dead stop. And all he had on for a seatbelt was a log chain. And his face went in the steering wheel and busted his nose and just laid his face wide open.
Remember old Bud Hauser?
Track of which you created with your brother. What's your reflections on today?
I feel sad. I feel glad.
I'm just glad that somebody did a story on it. I never dreamed they'd do it. It's brought back a lot of memories, and I want to thank you, Pam, Randy, for all the work you put into it. It's been a great day, and the drivers made it.
Thank you.
Same thing as he said. Glad for you guys doing what you done.
Did it bring back some memories today?
Bring back a bunch of memories.
Yeah.
Lots of fun down there. Too old to have it anymore.